Is the Crown Vic the best used car on the market? By the end of this video, you'll be able to answer that all on your own. Welcome back to another Is This the Best Used Car video. Today we are talking about the Ford Crown Victoria, and currently in our inventory, we've got 4 Panther platform cars. 2007, 2011, 2009, and if you look way over there behind the garage, there is a 2002 Lincoln Town Car. And some of the questions that we're going to be talking about today is the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to be nailing down each one of those, and we'll be going over some of the different videos I've done on these cars to show you exactly what those are. And so we're going to start with all the good. The good is simple. Just look at it.
You know, when I see a car like this, first thing I do is I say, would you look at this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Although these full-size, body-on-frame, V8, rear-wheel drive, all-American cars are becoming a thing of the past, the Panther platform cars, Lincoln Town Car, Grand Marquis, Ford Crown Victorias, those cars have lasted, ending with the Ford Crown Vics, up until 2011.
Look at this.
Most notably, they are known for ex-cop cars, like this ex-RCMP car, 2011 P7B, and the ex-Maine State Trooper car, P71. It was this look in your rear view mirror that had you scared shitless. Why? Because chances are you were speeding, you were doing something you weren't supposed to do, phone in your hand, no seatbelt, something like that, that had the police chasing after you. But for us civilian folk, we generally opted for the Grand Marquis Town Cars and this style Ford Crown Victoria. So we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today we're going to start with the good. The good is the looks. It's a good looking car. In my opinion, it's a better looking car than the Dodge Charger, the Chrysler 300, or the Chevy Caprice that existed as a rear-wheel drive. In many cases, these cars have been dubbed the four-door Mustang. Why? Basically because a lot of the parts interchange between this car and the Mustang. In fact, Junior's 2011 is manual swapped with parts out of a 2007 GT500. No, of course, the body parts don't line up, but basic same engine, transmission, rear diff situation. Sporting a 4.6 liter V8 engine, these cars came primarily with a 2-valve head, so they did not breathe as well as the Mustangs or the Marauder, which was a 2003, 2004 Mercury version. But there are a ton of people trying to make this car sound fast. They're not generally a very fast car. Some people look at this big V8 and they say, oh, but it's a big, heavy car. Not very good fuel economy. Well, it's all in how you drive it. Just like anything else, these things came stock with a 273 gear in most of them, unless you got up in some of the higher end models or the police cars. And on these cars, you could average somewhere in the high 20 miles per gallon, like 26, 27 is what I've got by times. So I'm not complaining about fuel economy on a big V8 rear wheel drive. The other thing about good on these cars is their reliability. Do they have a few issues? Yes, and we're going to go over those. But these cars are super, super tough. They had to be. They were police cars and taxis and limousines and all that good stuff that we had to make these things last to be put through the paces and run for several 100,000 miles. Another thing that's good on these cars is the enormous trunk space. Now this car only has the compact spare, but some of them came with a full-size spare and this great big well down here. Now of course we've got it full of subwoofers and junk and grocery bags. Nevertheless, there is still a ton of room in the trunk of these cars.
Look at this.
Now on the interiors, you could get these things dressed up or as stripped down as you wanted. Some Crown Vics, Grand Marquis, and Town Cars came with power leather seats front and back, but if you opted for the ex-police cars, it was pretty plain. Now besides not a lot of room in the back seat for backseat passengers, these cars are super comfortable. I have driven hundreds of miles in one of these things before with no issues on comfort, no back pain, no leg pain, cruise control. Just the overall ride on these things is A1. When you say rides like a Cadillac, no, rides like a Crown Vic. Now it's time to talk about the ugly. And when I say ugly, we're talking about minor inconveniences that generally will cost you a few bucks, but don't leave you down and out. The biggest, right there, intake manifold. Why the intake manifold? This is what's left of Junior's intake manifold on his 2011 Crown Vic. And a common thing for these to do is to leak antifreeze. And let me show you where the popular spot is. On this back coolant passage, there's a crack right there. That crack causes antifreeze to leak out down the back side of your engine, sometimes into the spark plug hole of the left of the right rear cylinder, causing a misfire, causing some problems, causing some overall inconveniences when these fail. The biggest problem is everybody wants a P71 or a P7B intake for their everyday normal Crown Vics. And why is that, you might ask? Well, let me show you. Look at the length of those intake runners. They go all the way from here and they loop all the way up and around, and that sucker is huge. And the longer the intake runner, generally, the more air you can run through your engine, a little more responsive. They work just that much better. The problem is you cannot find those anymore. Ford has discontinued them, and unless you're going high performance with an all aluminum intake, you're stuck with such brands as Dorman or some of the other Chinese companies out there for your intake manifold replacement. Another ugly that we mentioned before was the space in the back seat for backseat passengers. Now the front seat is currently set up to where my wife would drive, and I'm 6'2". My knees are completely into the back of this seat. As far as head clearance back here, we're good. And in the later models, you actually got cup holders in the rear armrest. Another bad, quite notably, some people will say the transmissions are weak on these cars. Despite the fact that they use them in these Crown Victoria police cars, they still tended to be weak in some cases and would fail on a regular basis after 150,000 miles. And in all the Crown Victorias, Grand Marquis, and Town Cars that we've had, we've never had a transmission failure. Knock on wood. Another bad, timing chains. I'm going to leave a link to this video right up here where we did a timing chain on a Lincoln Town Car. Granted, it was an older model, it was higher mileage, but they still tend to be a little bit problematic once you get some miles on them. Where you notice it the most is upon cold start. When you start them up, you can actually hear that timing chain rattle away just a little bit. And now it comes down to the ugly. And for the ugly is the reason why we're going to be looking at this 2009 parts car. Why is it a parts car? Well, let me show you. If these cars were not looked after, they will rust. I'm not quite sure if you can see it or not, but somewhere in this vicinity here, there's a little bit of rust bubbling up through the fender. That was a common area right along this lip. Usually it would just look like this, but this is what happens. Same thing on this side. It's just starting to blister there. And if you look right up in there, you'll see just what happens. Salt gets up in there and starts eating away. Another common area is these back dog legs, but it doesn't start there. It starts a little bit lower. And if we actually pull back this piece of plastic, you'll see what's left of the rocker panel. And if we go up under here, there ain't none. The rocker panels were common on these cars to go bad if you did not look after them, did not keep them undercoated. They would generally rot away, and when it comes time for inspection, well, that's when you know you've got to get them replaced. And then another place to look is right up in here in the bottom side of these fenders. Crap would get up in there, it would hold and eat away at those fenders, as well as the bottom part of the trunk floor. So word of the wise, make sure you are undercoating your Crown Victorias, Grand Marquis, and Town Cars so they'll last you for several years. And there goes Junior with his daily driver, his 2004 Crown Vic. Not to be confused with the 07, they are different colors after all. And if I know him, he'll pull out of here and spin the tires and make a mess. That's my boy. Now, I don't know if I'm going to put this into the bad or the ugly category, but somewhere in between is the infamous blend door actuator on these Crown Vics. They're certainly a heck of a lot easier to change when you know what you're doing versus when you don't. And if you're unlucky enough to own a Panther platform car that has air ride suspension in the rear, like this Lincoln Town Car, don't worry, because you can convert them into regular suspension by eliminating that air ride control. No big deal. I'm putting that in the bad category. So I guess the ultimate question, guys, is at the end of the day, is the Crown Vic the best used car on the market? In my opinion, yes, it is. But in layman's terms, the average guy, it might not be the car for you. They are big. Your wife may not like it. Your kids may not like it, unless he's a boy. And right now, the popularity of these cars is ever increasing, and the price just keeps going up. This car being a 2007 with just over 200,000 kilometers, about 130-ish thousand miles I paid $2,000 for this car, but I've done some upgrades. And in excellent condition, you could expect to pay somewhere in the vicinity of $3,000 to $4,000 American for one of these cars on a regular basis. And if it's a P7B or a P71, sometimes you can get them a little bit cheaper because they are fleet cars and, well, they generally tend to be in a little bit rougher condition. But there is an exception to every rule. The better condition, the lower mileage they are, the more money they tend to go for. So pay attention to the condition and the mileage, because those two things alone mean everything in the world. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Crown Victoria, Grand Marquis, and Town Car are the best used cars on the market? Let me know down below, and if you're not subscribed to Olde Carr Guy, because you should be, make sure you're subscribed. We're doing a 20,000 subscriber giveaway here very, very shortly. You got to be subscribed in order to win some great prizes. Not to mention, we have a ton of Panther platform content to share with you guys, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for staying tuned in and supporting Olde Carr Guy. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. I love you guys. God bless. Let's do it again in the next video.